Today, we are diving deep into a story that is genuinely unsettling. It's about what happens when the neat, clean answers of science just stop. This is a story about a sickness that didn't have a name and a diagnosis that didn't come from any doctor.
So let me ask you this. Just imagine for a second you're sick, like really sick. You feel this constant draining weakness, you're in pain, but every single test comes back normal. Doctors look you in the eye and tell you you're perfectly fine, but you know you're not. What do? Where do you turn when the entire medical world basically just shrugs its shoulders? Well, for one young woman, this question was just the beginning of an absolute nightmare.
So our story kicks off in Mizoram, India, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2021. We're talking about a 16-year-old girl who's already dealing with the loneliness of isolation and some heartbreak. And it's in this quiet, lonely space that something else, something terrifying, begins to take root.
And you can see how this thing just snowballs. It starts out looking like what you might expect from stress, right? Anxiety, not really eating. But by the end of 2021, it's way past that. We're talking fainting spells, constant pain all over her body. And then this really bizarre pattern starts to emerge. She goes to school and she feels totally fine. But the second she gets home, it's like a switch flips and the illness just attacks her. This all leads to a full-blown crisis in August 2022 that puts her in the hospital, where doctors, once again, find absolutely nothing wrong.
And this right here, this is the core of the problem. On one side, you've got the doctors. Their charts say her blood is normal. Yeah, her blood pressure is a bit low, but here's some vitamins, there's no detectable illness. But on the other side, you have her actual lived reality. Constant dizziness, pains that have no explanation, fainting, and a weakness so bad she can barely function. You see that gap between what medicine could see and what she was feeling? It was turning into a terrifying void.
So, what do? With every single medical door slammed shut, her family got desperate. And in that desperation, they decided to look for a completely different kind of expert. They stepped away from medicine and turned towards faith, hoping for an answer that wasn't in any textbook.
Now, to really get what happens next, we need to talk about the concept of a jinn. In folklore, a jinn is a supernatural being. They're not automatically evil or anything, but they can attach themselves to humans. And here's the crucial part. They're often said to be drawn to people who are in a vulnerable state. Someone feeling incredibly lonely or going through some deep emotional pain.
And this is the exact moment everything changed. After hearing her entire story, a Malvi, that's a religious scholar, gives them this absolutely chilling diagnosis. He tells the family that because she's been so isolated and sad for so long, a jinn has become attracted to her. And it's not just following her around. He says it's now, quote, mixed with your blood.
The Malvi gives them a solution, a protective amulet. It's called a tawiz. And he tells her she has to wear it all the time. And you're not going to believe this, it actually works. For a while, everything just snaps back to normal. She's eating, she's healthy, she's back to focusing on school. It honestly seemed like the nightmare was finally over.
But that peace, it was incredibly fragile. And it was all about to be completely shattered by one tiny mistake, which would throw her into a situation that was so much more terrifying than anything she'd experienced before.
It was just a normal day. She's taking a shower, and the tawiz accidentally comes off. The moment it does, she feels this sudden, unnatural, icy chill go through her entire body. She said it felt like a cold hand was literally placed on her. She completely freaks out, puts it back on right away, but it was too late. The damage was done. That protection had been broken.
After she puts that amulet back on, a whole new wave of symptoms starts. But this time, it's not just physical stuff, it's psychological. She starts having these awful nightmares every single night, sleep paralysis, and that constant creepy feeling that someone is always watching her. Her whole personality starts to shift too. She becomes irritable and rude, and she even stops her daily prayers.
So she's confused, right? She tries taking the amulet off again for a little bit, and for a short time, she actually feels better. So her family takes her to see a second Mulvi, and he gives them this terrifying explanation. He says that brief moment of relief was a trap. The jinn wanted her to think the amulet was causing the nightmares. It was a trick to get her to take off her only protection, all on her own, leaving her completely open to its influence.
And now that she's vulnerable, the encounters just escalate like crazy. By July of 2023, this presence, it stops just being a feeling. It becomes a voice. And then it becomes a figure standing in the dark.
One night, she hears a whisper. It's calling her name, and it seems to be leading her to the bathroom. And there, the voice gives her this horrifying command. It tells her to pick up a razor and to cut herself. She actually picks it up, but then, in a moment of clarity, she just snaps out of it, throws the razor down and runs back to bed, desperately trying to tell herself it was just a dream.
But it wasn't a dream. A little later, she's alone in her room after getting into an argument with her mother, and she feels it again, that familiar cold, that feeling of being watched. She glances over to the side of her bed, and there it is, a dark, human-shaped shadow just standing there, watching her.
And then the shadow figure starts to talk to her. But its words, they weren't just random scary stuff. They were cruel. They were targeted. It was saying the exact same things that were going through her own head after that argument with her mom, her deepest insecurities. It was like it was speaking with her own inner voice of doubt.
And then the psychological torment turns into this terrifying invitation. The entity tells her that she should just die and that it can help. Come with me, it says, as if it's promising her some kind of escape from all the pain. And it leads her back to the bathroom. The voice commands her again, pick up something sharp and cut yourself. She remembers just sobbing, fighting against it, but feeling this force pushing her to do it. She closes her eyes and she makes the cut. And when she opens them, the shadow is gone. She's just standing there, alone, in her own blood. The only thing that saved her life was that her hands were shaking so badly that the cut missed a major artery. After that, her family obviously rallies around her, and she starts a slow road to recovery. But the story still wasn't over. The final and maybe the most unexplainable event of all was still to come in February 2024.
She has this nightmare. A terrifying man is chasing her, he catches her, and he starts scratching her arm. She's screaming so loud her mom hears her and comes in and wakes her up. But as she's calming down, she feels this sharp pain in her arm. They both look down, and to their absolute horror, her arm is actually bleeding from fresh scratches. And what's even more chilling, there is a clear, bruised handprint on her skin, right where the man in the dream had grabbed her.
This incident just completely breaks her. She's in a state of profound shock. For 3 straight days, she's basically catatonic. She can't speak, she's consumed by this intense paranoia, and she's terrified of everyone, even her own parents. The line between her dreams and reality had completely and utterly collapsed, and it left physical proof behind.
Thankfully, with a combination of more spiritual help and medical care, her health has finally stabilized. She's actually doing well now. But the central question at the heart of her entire ordeal, well, that still hangs in the air.
So, what in the world really happened here? You're left with 2 totally different ways to explain this. Was it a straight-up paranormal horror story? A real haunting by an entity that could physically harm her and leave marks? Or was it a tragic and severe psychological breakdown, where extreme stress created hallucinations so powerful she unconsciously hurt herself? The thing is that physical evidence, the scratches, the handprint, it makes it really hard to just dismiss either theory out of hand.
And really, that's the question we're left with, isn't it? Hallucination or horror? Was this a battle for a young woman's soul, or was it a desperate battle taking place inside her own mind? Her story gives you evidence for both, and it leaves you wondering, where does the line between the mind's darkest corners and the world's unseen horrors truly lie?